Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Michael's Record Collection, where we talk about great music with the people who make it and the people who love it. I am joined by two members of the band Grackle, Steve Katsikis and Jennifer Lauletta. Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great to see you again, Michael.
It's good to see you. I had Steve on my very first episode of this program way back in December of 2020. We talked about your band Little Atlas and 15 years, uh, the anniversary of the Wanderlust album, one of I think Little Atlas's high points. And so if viewers want to go back, podcast listeners want to go back and listen to that, yeah, that's where it all began. And I think we've improved a little bit over the years, but maybe not that much. But Steve, thank you for returning, because we're going to talk about your band Grackle, because Grackle has a new album, just came out in November, and it's the third album, and it's called All That Matters. And I have to apologize for you because I'm not on social media as much these days. I knew you had a third album coming out, and I totally spaced on it until after it was out. I like to kind of get out in front of these things. So just kind of as a starting point, uh, Grackle is self-releasing these albums. You're producing them, and this is number three. How has it been going for you?
I love it. It's been going great. The autonomy and the freedom to record and release at our own pace is like a gift. We get to take our time, and that's not a bad thing at all. And I like how Grackle is truly uh, it's a kind of a musical adventure that's really for us. I don't know if that is the right way to say it, but we're not really writing for an audience. We're not performing for an audience. We are performing and writing and recording and arranging and producing kind of what we want to be doing. And it's great if folks want to jump on and enjoy it. But I've always gotten a tremendous amount of satisfaction out of the whole process of sort of the writing and the struggle, and then the committing it to an arrangement, rehearsing it, working it up with other musicians. That's actually a real super important part. And then moving into sort of the production end of things. That whole sort of set of processes are all so enjoyable and rewarding. And that's what Grackle's all about. That's what we get to do. We have sort of those self-imposed deadlines, and they get moved around and whatnot. And so it's just a very comfortable and immersive and enjoyable project.
Yes.
Well, I know you have especially keep very very busy with your multiple musical outlets that you have. Your job keeps you very busy. Um, so it's been a while since 2019's The Quiet Noise. Um, Tell me about the changes in Grackle since then. I know you have had some lineup changes.
Yeah. So one of the lineup changes is on screen with me here. It's Jennifer Lauletta. Uh, Jennifer and I have worked together for lots of years. I don't know. We could probably figure it out. I don't know, 13 years, Jen, 15 years.
15.
We've worked together 15 with the Dark Side of the Wall, which is a Pink Floyd recreation. And we usually do 1 to 2 big shows a year in theaters, in a theater setting, with a lot of production. It's a 9-piece band, and Jennifer has just been a center point of that band since she joined it about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've just loved what Jennifer brought to that. And on the other 2 Grackle albums, I did a lot of the like harmonies. Joanna, my wife, did quite a bit of harmonies on the first album. And when we were looking to do this new album, I had asked Jen if she'd be interested in kind of throwing in, and she said yes. So she's part of what's changed in Grackle, is the addition of having her participate on the album. We also have a new cellist probably since about 2019, Travis Carlisle, who's an amazing player and very versatile. So not only does he play an amazing cello, but he also plays electric mandolin, and that gets added in on the album as well. So those are two new musicians that are part of the album. We've had Myra Keene on violin for a long time. She also plays sax and flute and pretty much anything you could imagine she can play. And Jeff Gard and I founded the band back in 2016. We also added a new bass player, and that happened sort of over the pandemic as well. And so Mike Langford is a terrific bass player and
Yeah.
very progressive music aligned. So he's a new person too. So there's just like all these new people and new energy, and emerging from pandemic and all of those things that got added into this album.
So you guys kind of go at your own pace, and you've got this new album out, and I know you've been working on it for quite some time. And what I was interested in is do you, when you go from one album to the next, The Quiet Noise comes out 2019, is that the starting point for the next album, or do you have stuff that's already left over that you've begun to work on, but it's not really in shape yet that you start from?
That's a good question. I think it works both ways. There's been examples on All That Matters, for example. There's a song on there called Choices that's really quite old song. It was written quite a ways ago. Never been recorded and never released. And it got, I brought it back to the band. I'm like, hey, well, let's see what we could do with this. And they Grackleified it. To just to make it sound like Grackle. Like, that's what they do. They bring the unique musicianship, makes it sound like Grackle. So that one was sort of in the hopper, if you will. And then a lot of the other songs were sort of written. We didn't write them and then not release them on the last album, holding out for the future album. So usually when an album gets released, every the writing for the new album sort of begins, but it's not a way, it doesn't really happen in a way that's intentional. So I don't like release the album and like, oh good, now I'm going to spend all day Sunday after the album was released starting on the new album. It just sort of percolates and just unfolds that way.
Now, how often are you guys able to play out?
Jennifer, you wanna field that
Well,
one?
it's been such a labor of love that when it finally comes time to get out there and do something, actually present it, it's like a whole new world. It's a little bit of payback for all the work that you've done, and it's just part of the whole game is that we're together and we're doing this thing to be creative, but at the same time, you want it to be very good. So you get out there and you've got that first gig and you get that, and that is just amazing to me to be on stage and to present these original songs, of course, all written by Steve, fantastic songs that I wasn't really, and I don't mean it quite this way, Steve, I wasn't expecting because we had a lot of time together in Dark Side of the Wall, and I knew how talented he was, but I didn't really understand his talent as a writer until I actually got that first listen to what was going on. And I wondered, because I was new to progressive rock or however you want to pigeonhole this, I wondered at the time, I thought, I wonder how often, wonder what the audience is, because I was new to it. And I was very pleased to see, I mean, I loved it, but you don't know when you've got something original like that, how it's going to come out. And boy, the reception has just been so nice. Don't you think so, Steve? It's been,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
been a wonderful, it's been a wonderful start to it. But we play at this point, I'm thinking about every couple of 3 months, something like that, just because the market is out there, but it seems to be a niche that has not completely filled yet. There's so much uh, interpretation, and it just Anyway, it blows me away. I can't answer one question without talking about how happy I am with the whole project.
But Jennifer brought up the P word, and we talk about progressive rock, and I know this is music. Grackle's music would appeal to a progressive audience, but it is not what you think of necessarily when you think of progressive rock. Grackle's music is, I mean, there is progressive rock in there, but there's also some indie rock. There's some alt rock. There's some chamber
Mhm.
music. There's some jazz in there. Maybe even a little bit of bluegrass. There's a little bit of everything in here. I want to ask both of you. Number one, how do you personally categorize this band, or how would you what would your elevator pitch for your style of music be? And number two, how do you get people to let you play in their establishments this kind of music?
Oh man. All right. So we have struggled. I have struggled since the beginning of Grackle to describe what the heck this is from a genre standpoint, from a musical standpoint. You're right. It's got all that stuff in it. And I don't think we're a progressive rock band. I think we are, at best, we are progressive rock adjacent band. So, we've got some of those elements in it, but no more progressive rock elements, I think, than we have sort of jazz elements and indie rock and piano rock kinds of elements. We really struggle, honestly. It's real. Like the struggle is real to describe what we are in an elevator kind of speech. I have, 16 versions of our bio where I'm trying to describe what it is we do. None of them are right. I keep waiting to be, to be in the presence of someone who says, "Oh, you all are," and they drop this phrase. I'm like, "Yes, that's what we are," but haven't heard it yet. And you know, how do we kind of describe ourselves when we're trying to book a venue? Um, that's a related question. We try to avoid it, honestly. We talk about ourselves as being an original, rock band that has elements, of melody and harmony and instrumental prowess, and kind of we describe the pieces and the parts, but never the whole elephant because we just struggle with that. I would love if somebody could help me, like seriously, please help me figure out a way to describe what it is about our sound in a way that would actually communicate something, because we struggle with that.
Yeah,
Well,
that was one of the things that really drew me to the music, was that it was so different from anything that I had ever done. I mean, I had done all kinds of styles that are pigeonholed, jazz, rock, that kind of thing. And when I first heard Steve's music, I thought, obviously, I was first struck with how different it was. I'm talking about being different than any other genre. And at first, I thought, where's he going with this? What's, But then as I got to really understand what he was doing and the different musical influences, especially when I heard the jazz influences, that just blew me away. And it became a part of a really, really interesting project to me. And also, Steve was very kind to let me he kind of gave me my head as far as interpreting what the background lines should be and where they should be. But he, of course, both of us worked on that. But at the same time, he said to me, he said, do what you want with it. And I'd never had anybody say that to me before. So it was a great fun, just kind of deciding where all those wonderful accents should be to really make it a good tune. Yeah.
that's great. That brings me to the writing of this music. Now, Steve, I'm when you write a song for Grackle, is that something you just are writing a melody, something you can play on a piano or keyboard or guitar, and then you're bringing in Myra and Travis and Jennifer and Mike and Jeff and all these guys and saying, "Here's what I have. What would you like to do with it?"
Yeah, I think that's probably how I would describe it is, I sketch it out. So I write the chord changes and the melody. But that's not the song. That's the demo. and I bring it to, to Jeff and Mike usually first, who impart sort of the feel to the song. And with both of those guys, I've I don't have to like get involved in saying, I want you to play it like this. Like Jeff's worst idea is way better than my best idea in terms of how to approach something from a drummer's perspective, and same with Mike on bass. So they really flesh out the feel. So it's like, piano vocals or guitar vocals, and then bring it to them, create the feel, lots of conversation about arrangement. Oh, let's come back here, let's go here, let's move here, let's do this. And then when we sort of get the core of that, so that's the core band, and then we sort of bring in the string players. And usually the way the string parts are is that they're composed string parts. And so I've learned quite a bit about um, you know writing sheet music for string players, and I've gotten better at it too. My initial sort of like, here, violin player, here's what I'd like you to play, and she'd Maya would give it a try, and she'd be like, Steve, like violins don't do this, like this thing that you want to do, like that's not how we do stuff. And I'd
Yeah.
be like, oh, okay, okay. So I've learned more about that. But they come in, and then they don't just play what I showed them. I mean, I don't want it to sound like that either. But I sort of give them a structure of, here's where I'd like you to come in, and here's the melody, the counterpoint, the interplay, the harmonies, and I give them some ideas there, and then they further give me feedback, and we tweak from there. So it's kind of evolving. And then Jennifer is been sort of absolute, like she was describing, she's been the frosting on the cake. So she comes in and she's like, I think this part here, I think this. Let me harmonize you here. Let me use ahs and oohs here. Let me do counterpoint vocals here. And Jennifer's just like Jeff, like, which she's got great ideas. And it pains me a little bit to hear you say that, you haven't been given the opportunity to use your muse as often as you like, because you've got great musical instincts. And so
Uh,
I'm glad that, Grackle let you fly free with that.
oh yes, oh yes. Been a it's been a great experience because, well, I of course knew Cat Seeker Steve through Dark Side of the Wall, and it was just nice to be able to get with him and see what he himself was doing, and then to be able to do what I wanted to with it also. Well, it was just a pleasure. I love recording anyway. And I mean, I had a couple of times when I was sick and I still went because I just wanted to be doing that. But yeah, it's been very special. Very
Let's
special.
Yeah.
welcome in let's welcome in Jeff Gard, the drummer. Jeff, welcome.
Yay!
Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. I just found out you're recovering, and I hope your recovery is going well.
Yeah, that's one reason I might be a little late. Is I have to take the shoulder gear off and got to do my stretching exercises so I don't have any shoulder pain. But I'm recovering. It's getting there.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about Jennifer's parts and how these songs sort of get fleshed out after Steve writes them. And one of the things that Jennifer um, brings to the table, I think, on this new album that I really enjoy is that even like in the verses, you may have Steve sing by himself for the first half of the verse, and then the
Mhm.
second half of the verse, Jennifer comes in and puts a harmony on that before the chorus, where you would normally expect to hear the harmony vocals. I just think it adds a great layer to these songs where you've got maybe a 4-line verse, and the first 2 lines are just Steve, and the next 2 lines, Jennifer brings that to a new level.
Oh yeah. Well, they worked on that a lot. So I mean, I think that's crafted that way purposely. I mean, what you just said is exactly the way they planned it, I think. And yeah, it's another dimension that we haven't had in this band, and it's really powerful and adds a lot to the music.
It does. Jennifer, I don't really know a lot about. Obviously you are in a Pink Floyd tribute, but what else is your musical background? What else did you sort of shaped you as an artist?
Well, I won't Let's go back to the beginning. No, many years ago.
Let's go way back.
I started out doing folk songs and playing guitar back when everything was going on in the late 60s, and went from that to going on the road with a band that did floor shows, is what I always called it. Go on the road to Las Vegas, LA. You may front one of the big names, or you may just have your own show and do standards. I was doing regular American standards like Streisand and Sinatra and that kind of thing. Went from that to actually spiritual music after that, and then came back to rock, which was heck, it was quite a transition. And but I was at a point, I did like about 15 years of jazz, and I was at a point where I thought it's time for me to stop. And because I was getting older, and so I just as I was saying, okay, I'm going to clear the decks, I got a phone call from Dark Side of the Wall, and I was like, oh, can I do Great Gig in the Sky? Well, okay. So it worked out nice. But that's really been my thing, doing some local rock groups and that kind of thing. But I got tired of being a leader, and so I dropped out. But thank God for Steve and his groups. It's been like this, like woke me up again. It's like you can be this age and still sing. It's okay.
Well,
So,
I think it shows ambition on any vocalist part if they're eager to take on Great Gig in the Sky.
oh, I was. I just couldn't wait. And it took, I'll admit this, because of the structure of the song and she was scatting, basically she was scatting, and scat is so personal, and it takes time if you're going to actually cover the exact scat that was going on, which I started out not doing that, which was so funny because Steve said, wait a minute, Jennifer. I was just doing my own scat along with it. And he said, no, they want to hear it exactly the way they've heard it before. So I took that on, and it was like, well, good, you all got about 3 months because this is going to take some time. But yeah, I really wanted to do that one.
Yeah, I've heard tribute bands before do it their way and do it how Pink Floyd did it, and it always goes over better when you're getting what was on the record. Even though I think a lot of people love improvisation, but so there's certain things that you
It's
don't
got to
mess
be
with.
there.
There,
Yeah.
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 So I think for me, one of the things that struck me about this third Grackle album is that even though there's plenty of good music in the band's history, I think for me two things have changed on the new album. One is I feel like the marriage of Myra and Travis together has been very fluid and has brought these songs to a new level. But I also feel like maybe, Steve, you could talk about this. Maybe you're getting a better feel of how to write for Grackle, because
Yeah.
I feel like that the songs are just there's a new maturity level to them, a new level of accomplishment to these songs that are on All That Matters.
That's really intuitive of you, and I think that's exactly right. That the first album was was a bunch of songs that Jeff and I were working on together, really with the idea, but there was no Grackle. There was just like, hey, let's record these songs, and we kind of like, oh, these are coming out good. We should put a band together. And then the middle album, Quiet Noise, was sort of more maturity as I was sort of writing with that sort of in mind, but we didn't really have on Quiet Noise the two-string section. It was sort of building towards that a little bit more. And then this one was written, like you said, with much more intentionality, really thinking about the players who would be doing the different kinds of things, and then just more experience in writing and playing with each other that kind of led to what we're doing. Yeah.
I think it's always interesting to hear, and bands have made a living at this. Jethro Tull stands out, but when you hear non-traditional rock instruments as lead instruments in rock music, it just comes off differently. I mean, Kansas with the violin as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it just instantly, I think, opens up new channels in terms of how to express through music. And when you hear a lead or a melody line being played by a cello instead of an electric guitar, it's different, and it creates just a different vibe, a different feel. And it's kind of fun to do that. It lets you explore, some sonic stuff that you wouldn't normally get to if you were just approaching it with a much more traditional, drums, bass, guitar, keyboards approach.
Speaking of non-traditional instruments, let's just dive right into the songs. My Disaster opens this thing, and you could not have a less traditional rock instrument to start this album, could you?
So that's a hurdy-gurdy, real one, not a sample of a hurdy-gurdy. It's a real hurdy-gurdy. And I took lessons online with a teacher from Great Britain to learn how to play it. It came to me in a very touching and unexpected way. We had some friends locally, and this woman had always wanted to get a hurdy-gurdy. I couldn't tell you why, but she ordered the hurdy-gurdy, waited, 16 months for it to be manufactured by hand from a company in Oregon. There's only one US company that makes them. So she got in line for that and got this hurdy-gurdy, gets it, and she's never played an instrument before, so she doesn't know how to tune it or play it or whatnot. But she knew that I was, musical and whatnot, and so she brought it over and we puzzled over it, and I figured it out and got it tuned for her. And then we watched some videos together, and I taught her how to play some things on it, and kind of sent her on her way. And every so often I touch base with her. How's it going with the hurdy-gurdy? She's like, no, no. And then sadly, yeah. And then sadly, she passed away. She got sick very unexpectedly, very quickly, and she passed away. And her husband and son approached me at the memorial service and said, she wanted you to have this, and we wouldn't know what to do with it. And so they gifted me this legacy instrument. And so I've tried to use it, and learn it and play it well enough. And you're right. It's such a haunting sound and so perfect for the song, My Disaster. So that opens the album, is the hurdy-gurdy, and all of its noisy, grindy, buzzy glory.
I was listening to my first listen. I had to stop and go online and figure out what that instrument was. And I went to I think it was the Grackle Facebook page, and was reading through some posts before I figured out what it was. And you were mentioning it in the comments with someone, and I was just like, I don't know what this is, and I need to figure out what it is. And so maybe I can go find some hints online, and it does give it an otherworldly feel. And My Disaster is an interesting song in that maybe I'm crazy. The way it sounds to me is and the hurdy-gurdy is part of this. There's some medieval elements to this song, but it also, to me, has sort of almost a Middle Eastern Arabian flavor to it. Tell me a little bit about how that came about. Was that just the strings doing that?
Yeah, so the chord changes modulate in a particular way that implies a harmonic minor sort of scale. And that's that Mediterranean, Middle Eastern sort of feel for it, because it's almost going chromatically, and so that's where that kind of comes out of. And yeah, it's I don't know that we've got any other songs in the album that quite do it that way. I think Odessa does it a little bit that way too.
Yeah.
But that's sort of where that came from. And when we sort of locked in on, like, okay, there's that feel in there, and then it starts off with Myra playing a riff that's in that scale just to establish the song once the band kicks in. And I think it just sort of opens up, like, this is what you're going to expect, this sort of like constrained, interesting scale that sounds non-Western, followed by a much more soaring, typical chorus.
So the second track, "Oh Leanna," you sent me the lyric sheet and it says "Oh Liliana." So did that have to evolve because of the
Oh, it did.
phrasing?
Yeah, I probably sent you an old one. Yeah, because you got an extra syllable in that one,
Yeah.
and so that didn't work. So, oh, Liliana became Oleana, which is a little more lyrical anyway, and it fits the song. Yeah, that's kind of that kind of thing happens all the time, by the way, with the lyric writing that the lyrics do change and evolve, and sometimes I get kind of like, you know, I get unhappy with the lyric after a while. Like after you try it enough times, it's like, yeah, that doesn't really say what I wanted it to say, or it doesn't flow the way I wanted it to flow. Um, so that's an example. You got maybe an earlier version of that as I was in a bit of a rush to try to get you lyrics so that you can follow along.
Yeah, no, I found it even I think I found it more fascinating to see where the song came from than I even would have just give me the lyrics so I can see what's going on in this song. Other interesting thing about Oleana to me is that the verses and the chorus sound like they're from completely different songs.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Jeff, I'd love to talk for you to talk a little bit about, sort of the way that the choruses happen, and I'll just say that the drumming on that song is my favorite on the album. I love what Jeff put on Oleana, and how he sort of did what you're talking about. He took this verse and this chorus structure, which changes meter and whatnot, and he kind of glued it together in a way that just uh, did exactly what I was hoping it would do when we started working that out. Jeff, you want to talk a little bit about
Well,
that?
yeah, you know, for some reason, it seemed to me that it was more of and I'm not sure of the genre of music that I was trying to emulate, but uh, it, it it was almost like an Adams Family type of of appeal to me. I just pictured Gomez Adams kind of sauntering through his great room on that, because so you kind of did like a zen dun 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 for that little chorus there, because the other part is so kind of funky meter. So I wanted to change that up because it kind of gives it an eerie feel, like, oh my goodness, where did that just go? And but yeah, it had that kind of for me, it just seemed it had to slow to that kind of feel, and I don't know, it's just always. I just always think of the Adams Family when I think of that. Maybe it's growing up in the '60s watching the black and white TV shows, I guess.
Yeah, I really like how the and this is constant throughout the album from in many of the songs is that the song may have a darker feel in the verses and then like a more happy vibe in the chorus. It's very I love the way I love the way you guys play with the dark and light within a song like that.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Yeah. Again, it's purposeful, but sometimes I mean it's purposeful after a while. It's not something that we just, hey, that's what we're gonna do. These songs. And that's one thing about this recording is that this took a long time. Well, this took a lot more thought into it, a lot more preparation, a lot more recording. Sometimes we recorded these tracks 3-4 times before we really found out what we wanted. And I think it shows. I think it came out beautifully.
Speaking of that, how do you know when you've got it? When Steve's happy or when everybody's happy? Is there a point where you go, okay, we don't have to work on this anymore?
Yeah, right. That's an interesting question because you would think you would go, well, Steve's happy. That's good. I'm out of here. No, I think we all have to sign off on our parts, and we all have to say, yeah, that's a go. Because, and again, it was time consuming. It's nothing like, it wasn't like we had to go, oh, we got to get this out right now. So yeah, that's good. Go ahead, print.
Yeah, no
No,
pressure from the record company.
yeah, exactly. and that's the good thing about being, somewhat independent and nobody over your head with an axe. Um, so yeah, there's no time constraint. So we do what we want and when we want it done and how we want it done, and then we say, okay, that's a print.
So, Disappear, the third song, is one that I find myself sort of revisiting for the lyrics. There's a lot of darkness in them, but the narrator says he's bouncing back from that. But by the end of the chorus, and Steve, I was just curious what you had in mind thematically when you were writing those.
Yeah, this is probably the hardest song I've ever written from a lyrical standpoint in terms of how personal it is.
It
So
sounds personal.
in 20, yeah, it absolutely is. In 2022, I had a very serious health crisis. And I really would recommend a health crisis to everybody who's stuck songwriter because it just opens up the channels for songwriting. Um, Great
I highly
fodder for
recommend the
songwriting.
health crisis.
Brush with mortality. Yeah, that's great. But really, in all seriousness, that's, the song is about that in the more, in the broader sense, in terms of what it means, to come face to face with like, wow, like this is not forever. And um, let's think about what's important. And for me, that period in my life, which I actually wouldn't trade for anything, was super important and sort of taking all of these elements of my life and just putting them in really an important order for me about what truly is important. And that's where that song came out of that piece, and that's probably why you're reflecting on it sounding the way it does,
Mhm.
because that's kind of a dark thing to think about, that period of time in your life where something like that might happen, but it's also an opportunity to reevaluate what's important.
For sure. Yeah. So, um, enjoy it's the great thing about music is it can take you to dark places and you don't mind that trip. I think nobody wants to go through dark times in their personal lives, but I think there's I don't know if it's catharsis or just reminding you that things can be, are better than what you may think. But there's something about darker songs that I think is very appealing.
I never really thought of that as a dark song, but I guess you could perceive it as that. But I mean, I always thought that was just a very powerful song. It's one of like, it could have been gone. I
Yeah,
should have been gone, but you know, so I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't see the darkness. I just see the powerfulness of realizing what you have or what you could have had.
fair enough. Fair enough. It's
Yeah,
when you know the backstory of the lyrics, it does bring some clarity. But
Mhm.
looking at them, you're like,
Yeah,
what's going on with this guy? Just reading them out or listening to them for the first few times. So that brings us to Odessa, which obviously is a very topical theme there. You write about this city from a first person perspective, the city in Ukraine, in terms of this beautiful city is the devastation that's being brought upon it, and the person is, this is their city, and they're looking at what it's become, and becoming rubble, this city of lights. Steve, do you have a personal connection to Odessa?
I don't have like, it's not like my ancestors are from Odessa. Although I would sort of resonate that my Greek background does have a lot, the Mediterranean background does have a lot in common with Eastern European culture as well. But I just resonated with the suffering that I was reading about and hearing about, and I steered clear in that song of sort of the politics of it.
Yeah.
I mean that's not really what a song needed to be about, but I just really wanted to get at what it must be like for living in a beautiful city that you've called home for generations, um, And I tried to imagine what would that be like for Louisville, like where I live? What would that be like, for South Florida, or for a city in Florida, where you live in the city and you take this beauty for granted, and then all of a sudden it becomes threatened along with the lives of everybody you love. That's really where that came out of, trying to get to that sort of personal connection of both sort of the fear and the suffering. And then, like you talked about, the dark and the light, the last verse talks about, some degree of triumph, which has not been realized yet. It's my hope for the people of that region, that there will be an end to this suffering.
Yeah, you've humanized it. You've taken a story of something that's going on in the world, and you've drilled it down to where it can be understood from a human perspective. I think that's what art does.
Yeah.
So the some of these you've made videos for. One of that was one of them, and another one that you've made a video for is "I Can Make This Right." And just kind of curious, this seems like a relationship song.
Uh, it is, and it's also a bookend on the health crisis, you know, uh, duo, in terms of the two songs that reflect that. Um, it's, when you have a health crisis and you're thinking about what it means, you also imagine what it would be like to leave the folks that you love behind, and what that would be like for them. And that's what you're picking up on that song. It's really about the fact that our lives are defined by our connection to other people. That's what it's about. And I had time to think about um, that piece quite a bit as I was recovering.
Hmm. So we'd be here forever if we went every track. I want to hit some more
Yeah,
highlights though. You guys went. You have two covers on this album, and they're
yeah.
both, to me, extremely interesting covers. And the first one is "Heaven on Their Minds" from the Jesus Christ Superstar soundtrack. Whose idea was covering this song? Was that yours, Steve, or did you bring this to the band, or did you all talk about songs you might want to cover?
I don't remember,
I don't
Jeff.
either. Yeah, I
I don't
don't know.
remember
I
how
think
like we thought about playing it.
I mean, we've had members in the band who played for shows, and they like show tunes. So, and we are always like, hey, yeah, I like this tune, I like that tune. But I think that one just had a lot of power to it. It's very rock
Yeah.
oriented, and it was really cool. So we're like, yeah, let's do that one. And I think that's how it evolved. We just kind of toyed around with it, and then completely everybody liked it, and we did it well. So we had it in our repertoire for a while.
What I
Yeah, we
love about it
play
is,
live.
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
cool. What I like about it is that I'm not big on Broadway musical soundtracks. There, to me, they work well in the theater, but on a soundtrack, when you're just listening, to me, I hear the over dramatization, the trying to reach the person in the back row, with bringing that emotion. I feel like it doesn't quite translate personally for me. But I like the way you guys have done this version of it in a way that it's, like you said, it's a rock song, and I like this like loads better than the original.
Me
Oh,
too.
good.
Me too.
But very, very interesting. I mean, I'm not used to hearing Steve Katsikas singing about Jesus, and I'm hearing first listen. I wasn't paying like real close attention to what the title of the song was or anything. I'm like, wait a minute, I got to go back and listen to this thing again. And that's
We played one from Hamilton, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
We worked up that. We haven't done it for a while, but
No, we kind of like the musical theater motifs. It kind of fits with us a little bit. I like the way that modern musical theater can also throw off the tropes and the kinds of like obvious things, and move in different directions. That fits us well. And so I think that's also, as I was describing sort of our sound, I think there is sort of a little bit of musical theater or theatrics, but like that musical theater piece is in there as well.
uh,
Um, And I'm glad to hear it's the kind of musical theater piece that doesn't distance folks like Michael Citro.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any problem even with religious lyrics. I listen to the Neil Morse band and all of
Yeah.
all of Neil's
Yeah.
stuff. So but it wasn't a normal, like, I don't hear that on Steve Katsika's solo albums. I don't hear it on Little Atlas
Yeah.
albums. So it was a little out of left field when you just come out of um, Sanctify You, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Right into
Which
Heaven
is
on a Dime.
not a religious song at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. The second of those two covers is a Dada cover of Spinning My Wheels, which I'm pretty sure I had only heard that self-titled Dada album maybe a few times, and I did remember that song standing out on that album. But like, again, this cover, whose idea? That this is a very interesting thing to cover, and I really like what you've done with this.
Yeah, I'll take credit for that because I've been a Dada fan for a long time. My brother-in-law turned me on to that album, back when it came out. He's like, "You're gonna love this," and I was like, "Okay." And he was absolutely right. I love that album. I think it's such a different album than the rest of their catalog.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of their catalog is not that, not that interesting to me, but that album is great for two reasons. One is I think the songs are terrific, but the production, like the engineering, I think those are just special on how it came out. So I've always loved that album. And, that song has a legit string section on it. And so I was like, okay, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. And so that's how it came to be. It wasn't, initially that we thought we were going to put it on an album, but we learned it, we play it live, and it comes out really good. And so that we wanted to have a good time with that. And I love Jen's vocals on that's track, especially as it sort of builds, and you hear more and more Jen as the track gets further along. She does a wonderful job of sort of inviting the listener into it.
Yeah, and I think it's obscure enough that you can actually get by with, if you don't mention it's a cover, that people wouldn't know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Obscurity is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't pull that on you, Michael.
Well, especially when you send me the lyric sheet and it tells me it's a cover right on it. Like, oh yeah, I do. I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
I love, again, I mentioned that negative or maybe emotions that you don't necessarily seek out personally can be great in music. And one of those examples is Very Cold for June, which I don't know what you're exactly singing about here, but the sadness that you tinge this with, the emotion that you put into that song, Steve, is incredible. And I got to give you props because you make me feel my feels during that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You ought to try playing it live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it playing live. Yeah. It gets you right here.
I have to say that's kind of, there are so many of them that I like, but that I think is my favorite. It really, really touches me. It really takes me into, I know that there's a deeper meaning, but it really takes me into the plight of this person and how alone he or she is, and how not just alone with themselves, but alone as far as they know in the whole universe. And I mean, how much darker can alone get? It really touches me every time, and I loved singing it. Anyway, I think it's my favorite. Besides Odessa and, oh well, let's see, My Disaster. Just make a list.
Yeah, aside from all your other favorites, that
choices.
Right.
Yeah, Steve, what was on your mind for that? Because I just we're talking about the person listening to their favorite songs, and they're not going to be doing that anymore. Just was, again, just this amazingly forlorn vibe to it.
Yeah, it's really about profound aloneness and the story, sort of the overt story that gets rolled out into. is it's kind of a narrative. It's a story essentially about a person on technically on Mars, who is on Mars by themselves, and at some point of that piece of aloneness loses all communication with the outside world. That their lines of communication are gone, go away. We don't know what happened. But I imagined that the earth ceased to exist and something like that. And so this profound aloneness kind of unfolds. This person's talking about, what it means to never be able to see anything new created by people, not to ever have dialogue with people. And ultimately, at the end of the song, the person chooses to kind of open the door and walk out into the landscape, which ostensibly means end your life, which is what profound aloneness would result in. It's like that's not living. And so I think those two themes are sort of interwoven. There's this overt story on the surface, but the underlying piece is about that.
So a little bit of sci-fi.
It's a little bit of sci-fi, and there's a video that we've created for that sort of shows that piece as well.
Jeff, this is a good song for you. The Pen and the Sword. I love the sort of quirky offbeat drum pattern and keyboard riff that drive this song forward. I was trying to do some of the this is a podcast, a video, and a newsletter. I'm trying to write about this song,
Right.
and I got nothing. I'm like, I don't know how to describe this song right now. So I put it on hold, and I figured I would talk to you guys first, and then maybe I'd have something I could say more about it. So tell me a little bit about the time signature and how that pattern all came about.
I think Steve came up with the riff, do 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 do, and it's in 7. So you just try to get a drum beat that's like. So, just try to get that groove in there. And so it just kind of gives you, it takes you right along with the song, but then you get into the chorus part and it's more of like a heavy metal, almost like a Uriah Heep kind of, like a. So you get that kind of feel to it. So it's kind of, I don't know, that it's just, I love that song myself, but it's again, it's in 7 and then it's in 4/4 and then sometimes it's a couple of 8s. So
it's a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want you to hurt your shoulder doing this. So
no.
Make sure you're taking it easy.
No, it's a good exercise.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine that's really a fun one for you to play.
Oh yeah. It's not fun for Steve because he's singing
He's right.
totally different from the actual riff. So and that I don't know how he does it. Because he's playing but he's singing ba da 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 da. So it's he's kind of singing in 4, but he's playing in 7. So that's really difficult.
That's prog rock, man.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's what you get. I feel like Choices is maybe one of the more jazzy songs on this record, but it's also got this. Maybe it's the way the strings sound, but it's also got a bluegrass element to it. And Steve, your lyrics seem a bit stream of consciousness in this one. This seemed a little different than the structure of the other lyrics for the other songs that you wrote.
Yeah, it's a much older song, so that may be some of what you're seeing too, is sort of a younger version of me lyric writing, and I tended to be a little bit more like stream of consciousness with my lyrics when it was written. It's really the whole song is simply about the fact that we have these choices to make, and it's sort of metaphorizes. I don't know if that's a word, but it takes sort of that process and breaks it down into like the conflict that we feel inside of ourselves when we're making a choice. Sometimes the fact that we're making a choice but we feel forced to make a choice. Is that really a choice when we're forced to make a choice, or is that something different? And then using a metaphor of like these choices being, snakes in the grass, so that there's danger in making certain kinds of choices. So all of that stuff is sort of folded into that song in a way that's nondescript. I'm not sure if I would agree with the bluegrass, but I respect the fact you're hearing what you're hearing. That's all unintentional in terms of how it comes across.
Mm-hmm.
But I will basically stipulate that that song moves around quite a bit in terms of what it's throwing at the listener in different sections of it.
Uh,
You've got this chorus that's very like bum 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 bada bum, bum like with everybody punching on it. You've got these verses that are jazzy for sure. The way especially Jeff and Mike are managing the rhythm section. You've got this middle section, where I've got this saxophone solo that I play that's going into a funk almost kind of a thing. Makes you want to move.
yeah,
And
kind of New
then
Orleans-ish too.
yeah, kind of New Orleans is. So, it's a bit all over the place, but that's intentional because that's the nature of free will. And
Yeah.
and so that's how the music and the lyrics sort of come together.
Got it. Yeah, I don't feel like an overtly bluegrass vibe to the song. It's just maybe it's the tone or the particular choices that the string players used because it's only in the
Yeah.
strings where I hear a hint of it. So
Yep. Yeah, it's that melody. That's what you're hearing. Okay, I got you now. So as
Yeah.
you're hearing it, da, 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 da. It's
yeah.
it's very much and it's repeated. It's a motif that's repeated, and I could see that coming out of more string music.
So the record ends at least on the streaming services and from what I've seen ends with spinning my wheels and then you sent me a 12 track Clover. Is this like a bonus track?
I'm gonna give this one to Jeff.
Oh, good. Don't give it to me.
Well, yeah, I was the only one advocating for it to be on there. I'm like,
Oh no, I loved
Clover.
it.
Yeah, I love that song. It's a
Yeah.
throwback. It reminds me of, all the 60s flower music and, just the cheeky sound of some of the hits
Mhm.
of the early 70s and late 60s. Like I say, if you'd have put that song out back in like 1967 or something, it would probably have been a hit and been on the airwaves. I think personally, but I just think it's really cool. It's a throwback. Um,
Does this
yeah, just like the all the depth of and the sounds, the nostalgic sounds in there. Really cool.
Mhm.
does this song just does it exist anywhere like on Bandcamp or somewhere? I mean,
Mm,
because
Yeah,
holding on to it.
I yes, I think it is. If you buy the whole album on Bandcamp, you get that song.
okay. So
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah.
like a bonus track then.
It is kind of like
Yeah,
a bonus
right.
track, and rather than us saying it's an intentional bonus track, it's it's actually a compromise bonus track.
Yeah,
Uh, we like the song, but
Yeah.
I think it's a good little pop song.
Yes.
I
And
do
I
too.
really do. I don't dislike the song at all, but it's so different than the rest
yeah,
of the
very
album,
different.
It's
almost jarringly different
yes.
that we were kind of like, should we really put this on the album? And folks
Yeah,
are like, it's a good song. It should go on the album. We should share it. I'm like, yeah, but
it
it
might
doesn't.
really confuse people.
Yeah.
it
So,
does work as a bonus track. Like you mentioned, it's easily the poppiest song on the bunch out of the bunch, and it is a song that where I think for any traditional rock band that would kind of come out of left field and it would be a bonus track situation. I feel like Grackle could get away with it because you guys kind of are in and out of so many boxes as it is that it doesn't necessarily shock the listener like it might, if it was on the end of, I don't know, a Yes album or something.
yeah. I think of it like kind of like Lazy Sunday Afternoon, like as a Queen song, right? That they always put those kind of like I
Yeah,
don't even know how to describe those kinds of old-timey kind of songs on the Queen album. I think
right.
Freddie Mercury certainly had a passion for that kind of music, those older sounding standards. So that's kind of like our, Sunday afternoon song that ended up on the album.
So it's great vocal harmonies in this one. And the interesting thing is that I don't know, I'm not a musician. So tell me about the chorus structure from a musician standpoint, what's going on in that chorus?
Let's see, what is going on in the chorus? So lyrically, it's using all these particular metaphors for like, shooting star and four-leaf clover and all these things about luck. And the song is about looking for love and not being successful. Like, isn't that the classic like 60s, 70s
Yeah.
topic? I think from a chording melody standpoint, it really squares itself up in kind of your typical, 1-4-5 approach. So which is what we usually avoid like the plague. Like we usually don't go there, but the song just demanded it. It just did. It just
Yeah.
demanded to be what it is. And so I would say that that's a good example of me not fighting what the song wanted just because it seemed to be like the more typical place to go. It just seemed to work. Did that answer your question, Michael? I don't know
Yeah.
if that was.
Yeah. But also there's a solo in there that sounds like harpsichord. I'm assuming that's a keyboard patch.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, kind of like a little bit of aping of a Beatles track where there's a harpsichord solo played by George Martin. I can't remember the name of the song in that Beatles track. That's kind of where the idea came from. And then there's a mellotron flute sound, which again conjures that period of time where you would hear the
Strawberry
Moody
alarm
Blues.
clock.
Yeah, you would hear like that kind of a thing. And Myra's certainly a competent flute player, but I didn't want a real flute. I wanted the kind of flute that conjured a particular era. So that's how that came
yeah.
in there.
No, I mean, that answers that question. My next question was going to be about the flute and how you manage that. You play sax and Myra plays sax. So what am I hearing when I hear sax on this album, the solos especially? I think, can't recall off the top of my head, one of the songs has two separate sax solos. Is that Choices that I'm thinking of?
That's probably Heaven on their
Okay,
minds.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The two separate ones. Um, and that Choices does have maybe Choices also has two separate sax solos. I play
Uh-huh.
soprano sax, a
Right.
little bit of alto, soprano on Heaven, and then I played alto on Choices. And Myra's a great sax player, so she could have done that. But I was just kind of goofing on that song, and I just kind of wailed out this solo, especially the first one on Choices, and it just kind of came out exactly like I wanted it. And Myra's like, you know what? That's let's leave that. That sounded fine. Um, Myra and I have a different approach to the instrument also. I play it from a growly jazz blues kind of a place. I like to be very aggressive when I play the saxophone. Even the soprano, I like to play it really aggressively. And Myra's sax background comes out of actually a classical sax background. She has a degree in it,
Wow.
which I didn't know that you could do classical saxophone because it's not a typical orchestral instrument. But that's what she trained in and whatnot. And so her approach to the saxophone comes out of that tradition, not the jazz tradition, but a more classical tradition. And so that's why it sort of fit better, I think, to have me do it at that point.
All right. So is this album just available digitally? Is there physical product at all?
There is physical product, but you can only get it at the live Grackle show. That was also a decision we made. For a couple of reasons. One is we wanted, an extra special thing to get folks to come out to the live show, which is an opportunity to go home with the CD, and the off chance that folks still own a CD player. Some people do, not in their cars, as I come to understand, but we also, it's, the last couple albums when we made it available, it's actually a hassle to get into the running to the post office and sending out CDs. It's become unbearably expensive to ship them overseas, as you know, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so that was often a source of a lot of our sales was overseas. And so the world's evolved and people are getting their music digitally. If somebody really, really wants a Grackle album, like we still have 100 or so left that we're bringing to gigs and whatnot, we could probably make that happen for folks. But We've evolved into a more purely digital release way of doing things, and I think that works well for us. The other thing the digital release does is we've made it available in 24-bit, and that's higher quality than CD. We think the album sounds really good enough to warrant the difference there. And there's some folks who really want to have their music at sort of that a little bit higher resolution. Some people subscribe to Tidal as opposed to Spotify because they care about. Me too. Me too. I
Guilty.
dumped Spotify a little bit ago, and yeah. So that's a little bit about why it's available digitally.
Well, that's the thing about DIY operations like yours, is that there's just Y. So there's too much I to D.
Yes, you're right.
You don't have time. You all have real lives, and I know from talking to you, Steve, we had trouble just getting this set up and getting everything sent over so that I could learn a little bit about this to prepare for the interview. So you were busy with your day job, and I appreciate what you went through to get me all the information, and sorry to be such a pain and to send you so many messages.
No, what you should tell me, Michael, is like, Steve, if you're serious about sharing your music with people, you should have this stuff ready to go. What's your deal, dude? That's what you should have told me.
Yeah, I always feel that I am intruding on people, and I never want to be that kind of guy. It's just, hey, when you have a chance, kind of thing.
No, not at all. You and I go back a long ways.
That's true.
Like, right? We go back to like, what is it, 2004, 2005?
Probably a little
I think that's about
earlier
when I
than
met
that, I
you.
think. Yeah, we were. Yeah, I started doing my radio
Yeah,
show,
maybe.
early '04. So I think I probably had even maybe seen you guys, Little Atlas, play live a couple of times, maybe before then. So
I think that's true. Yeah. Yeah, probably even before we got signed and stuff like that. So
so I used to
yeah,
go to
that's a long time. So thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. I used to go to Steve's shows in Miami, and it was like an hour drive for me, and I would sit, and usually we would talk in the intermissions, and we would talk afterwards, and I would sometimes, when your wife was there, I would talk with her, and then we would run into each other at festivals and talk, like, so it has been a very long journey for the two of us, and I shudder to
Yeah.
think at how much time has passed since then, because it feels like just it just happened. So,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of that. But that I want to thank you, all four of you, Jennifer, or three of you. There's four of us on this call. I'm looking at three of you, Jennifer, Jeff, and Steve, for sharing with me a little bit about this record. The best place for people to find out more about you is to go to the Grackle Facebook page. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have a regular website too, grackleband.com. So that'll kind of get you to the other places. We do most of our interacting through Facebook.
Mhm.
We're not really Insta people, so Facebook is more of a place where you can see our videos. We've got a lot of videos we've shared out from our CD release party. So if you want to see the band perform live, and you don't want to drive to Louisville or one of the other cities we play in, that's a good way to see what we do live. Last thing I want to say, because I kind of left something important out. Is that okay if I
Sure.
wrap us up with a piece I left out?
Absolutely.
So going forward, one of the things I'm really excited about with this band is our new guitar player, Josh Parker. And Josh joined the band after the album was released, and he performs with us live. Josh is a professor of guitar. He teaches graduate school at Campbellsville University. He's an amazing guitar player, an absolute gem of a human being in the rehearsal room, and just to be a bandmate. And so moving forward with writing, recording, and going into new things, to have we've never had a guitar player before in Grackle other than me kind of plinking out little things because it just had to happen. But to have a legit guitar player who's a monster performer is just super exciting, and I can't wait to see what comes from that. So big shout out to Josh Parker.
Have you started writing for the next Grackle album?
I have bits and pieces of ideas. So we're gonna give Jeff the proper amount of physician required leave from the bands, so he fully rehabs.
Yeah.
And start maybe putting the next thing together. Starting, we'll see. Summer is going to be kind of folks will be traveling, but starting back in the fall, I think we're going to get more serious about recording and writing and arranging a new set of songs.
All right. You can check out Grackle's Bandcamp page, and you go there on what is it, Bandcamp Friday,
Uh-huh.
and the artists get more money. So do that if you're gonna purchase the album. If you are in the Kentucky area, it's probably worth the drive to go see them live if you get a chance. I live in Florida. It's a little bit of a haul for me, but I would absolutely love to get up there and see you guys perform live. Are you guys, again, the way that the type of music you play doesn't necessarily lend itself to any obvious festivals, but are there any festival dates or anything that you guys have been investigating?
Do they even have?
Not yet, but we're open and willing.
Yeah.
We got to get you guys on the Cruise to the Edge, get you guys some more exposure, I think.
Yeah. There you go.
But plus, cruise. It's
Yeah.
always fun.
I'm ready. I can do that.
Jennifer, Steve, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Hope that All That Matters does really well for you. I apologize to you, Steve, for taking so long to get around to checking this out. As I mentioned, not spend a great deal of time on Facebook as much as I used to, and I was aware that this album was coming, and then by the time I realized it was here, it had already been out for a month, or a couple of months. So I missed out on it. But the cool thing is I got to dive really deeply into it for this, and I thank you for that. So best of luck with this and with the live shows, and thank you all for your time.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure.